In a small-town courtroom, where the air was thick with tension and the weight of justice hung over every whispered conversation, a 3-year-old girl named Lily stood at the center of an extraordinary moment. What she said to a police dog, a seasoned K-9 named Max, would ripple through the room, leaving hardened officers, weary lawyers, and a stoic judge frozen in awe. Her words, simple yet profound, carried a truth that no one could have anticipated, least of all from a child so young. Lily's story began in a quiet neighborhood in Maplewood, a place where everyone knew each other's names, and the biggest scandals involved misplaced garden tools. Her mother, Sarah, was a single parent who worked long hours as a nurse, leaving Lily in the care of her grandmother, Margaret, during the day. Lily was a bright child with wide, curious eyes and a habit of asking questions that made adults pause. She wasn't like other kids her age, who might shy away from strangers or new situations. Lily embraced the world with a fearless wonder, as if she saw something in it that others missed. On a chilly October morning, the kind where frost clung to the grass and breath hung in the air, Sarah noticed something strange. Lily had been quieter than usual, her chatter replaced by long stares out the window. When Sarah asked what was wrong, Lily only said, "Max knows." Sarah, puzzled, pressed her daughter for more, but Lily just repeated, "Max knows," her tiny voice firm with conviction. Sarah assumed Max was an imaginary friend, a common thing for a 3-year-old. But she couldn't shake the unease that settled in her chest. Max, as it turned out, was no figment of Lily's imagination. He was a German shepherd, a police dog who worked with Officer Daniel Harper, a veteran of the Maplewood Police Department. Max was known for his sharp instincts, trained to detect everything from narcotics to missing persons. He and Harper were a familiar sight in town, patrolling the streets or visiting schools to teach kids about safety. Lily had met Max once before, during a community event at the park, where she spent nearly an hour petting him and whispering to him while Harper smiled and answered her endless questions. That October day, something had shifted in Maplewood. A local man, Thomas Reed, had gone missing. Reed was a loner, a quiet figure who kept himself but was well-liked enough. His disappearance wasn't noticed at first. People assumed he'd taken one of his usual fishing trips. But when his sister reported him missing after 3 days of silence, the police began to search. The case grew complicated when they found traces of blood in Reed's home, along with signs of a struggle. The investigation quickly escalated, and whispers of foul play spread through the town. Officer Harper and Max were called in to assist. Max's nose led them to a wooded area just outside Maplewood, where they found Reed's jacket torn and stained with more blood. The discovery turned the case into a potential homicide, and the police began questioning neighbors, friends, anyone who might know something. Sarah, who lived a few houses down from Reed, was interviewed, but she had little to offer. She hadn't seen Reed in weeks, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary, except perhaps Lily's odd behavior. A week into the investigation, the police had a suspect, Carl Jenkins, a handyman who'd done some work for Reed. Jenkins had a history of petty crimes, and witnesses placed him near Reed's house the day before the disappearance. The evidence was circumstantial, but it was enough for an arrest. Jenkins denied everything, claiming he'd only stopped by to fix a leaky pipe. The case was set for a preliminary hearing, where the judge would decide if there was enough evidence to move forward. Lily, though only 3, became an unexpected part of the story. Sarah had brought her to the police station one day when Margaret couldn't watch her. While Sarah spoke with an officer, Lily wandered over Max, who was resting in the corner of the room. Harper noticed a little girl kneeling beside his dog, her small hand stroking Max's fur as she whispered to him. Harper didn't think much of it. Kids love Max, but something about Lily's intensity caught his eye. She wasn't just talking. She was speaking with purpose, as if Max understood every word. When Sarah came to retrieve her, Lily looked up and said, "Max knows where the man is." Harper, standing nearby, chuckled at first, thinking it was just a child's imagination at work. But Lily's expression was serious. Her eyes locked on his. "He knows," she repeated. Harper humored her, asking, "What does Max know, sweetheart?" Lily didn't answer directly. Instead, she patted Max's head and said, "You'll see." Sarah apologized, embarrassed by what she thought was Lily's fanciful talk. But Harper, who'd seen enough in his years on the force to trust his gut, felt a prickle of curiosity. He asked Sarah if Lily had said anything else about Reed or the case. Sarah mentioned Lily's recent quietness and her cryptic comments about Max knowing. It was vague, but Harper couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. As the hearing approached, the case against Jenkins grew shakier. The blood in Reed's house matched his own, but there was no body, no murder weapon, and no clear motive. Jenkins' lawyer argued he was being scapegoated, and the prosecution was struggling to build a solid case. Meanwhile, Lily's words stuck with Harper. He started bringing Max around the neighborhood more often, letting the dog lead him through the woods where Reed's jacket was found. Max seemed agitated, pulling toward a part of the forest the search teams hadn't fully explored. One evening, Harper followed Max deeper into the woods, past a narrow stream and into a dense thicket. There, hidden under a pile of leaves and branches, was a shallow grave. Reed's body was inside, his death caused by a single blow to the head. The discovery shocked the town and shifted the investigation. The police now had a crime scene, but the question remained: who was responsible? The hearing became a focal point for the community. The courtroom was packed with locals, reporters, and curious onlookers. Jenkins sat at the defense table, his face a mix of defiance and fear. The prosecution presented the new evidence, including the body and the blood-stained jacket. But the case still hinged on connecting Jenkins to the crime. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Ellen Carter, listened carefully, her expression unreadable. Sarah was called as a witness, mostly to confirm she hadn't seen anything unusual in the neighborhood. She brought Lily along, as childcare was an issue that day. The courtroom was no place for a toddler, but Sarah had no choice. Lily sat quietly in the gallery, clutching a small stuffed dog that looked a bit like Max Harper was there too, testify about Max's role in finding the body. He described how the dog had led him to the grave, his training and instincts proving invaluable. During a break in the proceedings, Lily tugged at Sarah's sleeve and pointed to Max, who was lying near Harper at the front of the courtroom. "I need to tell Max something," she said. Sarah, flustered, tried to hush her, but Lily was insistent. Before Sarah could stop her, Lily slipped out her seat and toddled toward Max. The courtroom, already buzzing with low chatter, fell silent as people noticed a little girl approaching the police dog. Harper saw her coming and knelt beside Max, who wagged his tail at the sight of Lily. She leaned in close, her small hands cupping Max's face, and whispered something no one else could hear. Max's ears perked up, and he let out a low whine, his eyes fixed on Lily. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity to those watching. Judge Carter, peering over her glasses, raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Sarah rushed forward, apologizing profusely, but Harper waved her off. "What did you tell him, Lily?" he asked gently. Lily looked up, her voice clear and steady despite her age. "I told Max he did good. He found the man. But he knows who did it, too." The words hung in the air, and a murmur rippled through the courtroom. Harper, caught off guard, pressed her. "Who, Lily? Who does Max know about?" Lily didn't hesitate. "The man with the red truck." She pointed across the room, not at Jenkins, but at a man in the gallery, a local mechanic named Greg Larson. Larson was a familiar face in Maplewood, someone who'd worked on Reed's car a few times. He drove a distinctive red pickup truck, one that kids in the neighborhood often pointed out, because of its bright color. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Larson's face went pale, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Judge Carter banged her gavel, calling for order. She looked at Lily, then at Harper, and asked, "Officer Harper, is there any basis for this?" Harper, still processing what had just happened, admitted he didn't know, but he couldn't ignore the specificity of Lily's words. He asked the judge for a moment to speak with Lily privately, and Carter, intrigued, allowed it. In a side room, with Sarah and a court officer present, Harper knelt down to Lily's level. "How do you know about the man with the red truck?" he asked. Lily's answer was simple but chilling. "Max told me. He saw him. He was there when the man got hurt." Sarah, confused, interjected, "Lily, dogs don't talk." But Lily shook her head. Max doesn't talk like us. He shows me in my head. Harper didn't know what to make of it. He wasn't one for believing in the supernatural, but he'd seen Max do things that defied explanation. Finding hidden evidence, sensing danger before it appeared. He decided to follow the lead, no matter how strange it seemed. He asked Lily if she could tell him anything else Max had shown her. Lily thought for a moment, then said, "The man with the red truck was mad. He hit the other man with a big stick." Back in the courtroom, Harper shared what Lily had said, careful to frame it as a potential lead rather than fact. The judge, skeptical but curious, allowed the police to question Larson. They brought him in for an interview, and under pressure, Larson's story began to unravel. He admitted to arguing with Reed over an unpaid repair bill. The argument had turned physical, and in a moment of rage, Larson had struck Reed with a piece of firewood. Panicked, he'd hidden the body in the woods, hoping no one would find it. The revelation stunned the town. Larson wasn't a hardened criminal. He was a neighbor, someone who'd fix their cars and wave at them on the street. The idea that he could commit such an act was almost unthinkable. But the evidence backed up Lily's words. The big stick was found in Larson's garage, with traces of Reed's blood on it. Tire tracks from his red truck matched those found near the woods. The case against Jenkins fell apart, and Larson was charged with manslaughter. The courtroom moment with Lily and Max became the talk of Maplewood. People debated what happened. Some called it a coincidence, others a child's wild imagination. A few whispered about something more, something unexplainable. Harper, ever practical, didn't dwell on the how or why. He only knew that Lily's words and Max's instincts had led to justice. Sarah struggled with the attention that followed. Reporters wanted to talk to Lily, but Sarah shielded her, wanted her daughter to have a normal childhood. Lily, for her part, seemed unaffected. She still talked about Max, still insisted he showed her things. When Harper visited them a few weeks later, Lily ran to Max and hugged him, whispering something no one else could hear. Max wagged his tail, his eyes bright, as if he understood. The story of Lily and Max lingered in Maplewood long after the trial. It was a reminder that truth could come from the most unexpected places, even the words of a 3-year-old to a police dog. For those in the courtroom that day, the memory of Lily's small voice and Max's attentive gaze remained a moment of awe, a fleeting glimpse of something bigger than themselves.